I'd like to thank you for being here. This is my persuasion speech for my speech class. I'd like to thank my cousin for being here. I'd like to thank my mother and father, of course. Today I'm gonna persuade you on why racism can be tackled and racism can be overcome. At first, when I first started this speech, my main focus was on cop brutality, since there's been a lot of things that have been going on here in the United States for the past 2 years. Racial tensions have very flurried and has continued to progress. And especially with the election of Donald Trump as well, it has actually accounted for several percentages of rising in bullying and different things like that. First, I'd like to quote Mahatma Gandhi, and he says that you be the change that you want to see in the world. And what that means to me is that as individuals ourselves, we can embody that certain type of idealism so that we may continue to progress like a spider web and continue to push over these different ideas and to change a culture that really has set their mind on a lot of prejudices and a lot of negative connotations when it comes to different minorities and stuff. You can change the way people view and perceive things simply by the way that you act and simply by the way that you present yourself. A lot of people have a lot of stereotypes, and sometimes the stereotypes seem to be true, but not necessarily in all cases. There's always good and bad between people. You're always going to have good and bad between anyone else. When there's a police officer that does do something against the law, that abuses their power, that doesn't make it seem that all police officers are abusing their power. When a Hispanic male commits a robbery, or African American male commits a robbery, doesn't mean that all of them do it. Neither does not mean with Caucasian males as well. The media has propaganda and has made a lot of these issues very, very well known to us. But in actuality, the truth is that most of these crimes are not hate-related crimes. Most of these crimes are actually made out of necessity by the culture in which you're actually pushed into. 83% of all Caucasian crimes are committed against Caucasians. 90% of all African American crimes are committed against African Americans. So we've been led on, or we've been fed on, to believe that we have a system that is completely against the minority and used to influence our decisions, so that we have riots and different things that went on, just like in Ferguson. Now, how would you change this? How would you go about changing culture? You're not just going tackling against racism. You're going against an entire culture, the culture of which we have created for ourselves. What is it? First of all, educate yourself. Know your percentages, know your facts, know the different things. Don't necessarily just go by the media, because a lot of media has a lot of different type of propaganda, things that they want to push onto you. Not necessarily just to report the news, but to create the news, something that you want to see, to get more viewers, to do different kinds of things in such way. Change the way you perceive people. Not all people are bad, and not all people are good either. And it's good to have a little median in between. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not an extreme on both sides. There will always be an extreme on both sides. But that does not account to most people. Now, racism, and then continue, and with your loved ones and everyone, to continue, like I said, be the change you want to see in the world. If you want to be the change you want to see in the world, embody that within yourself, and then influence your loved ones, your family members, and everyone that's close to you. Hopefully down throughout the years, that racism and prejudice can actually completely overcome. Once these things are overcome, eventually at one point, this year, in 2008, Barack Obama was elected president, first black African American president of the United States. This year we had Hillary Clinton, the first woman that could have been Madam Secretary of the United States. We always had a tendency of progression, a tendency of moving forward. One of the main issues of this year is that with Donald Trump, with all his racial antics and his racial tactics, is that we're going to be progressing backwards. But it doesn't take one man to do that to a nation. It takes individuals to do that to a nation. Once an individual decides and they can make up to their mind what is right or wrong, then themselves are held accountable, not just one man's words, not just what he says. He doesn't represent the entire the personal influence that we have within ourselves. So if you want to change racism, you have to progress slowly, and you have to change the culture that embodies with it as well. There's been many issues, many hate crimes that's gone on in the past year and a half, 2 years, and that does not mean that things are actually going to be progressively getting worse. There's always a cushion in which you can say stop. There's always a time and a place to start all over again. I truly believe in second chances, and I truly believe in the fact that we have the ability to create change. We have the ability to do more than what we can actually perceive that we really are. One person can break a shape for the rest of the world, is what I'm trying to say. So what I'm trying to quote is, so I quote Mahatma Gandhi, be the change that you want to see in the world. If you want to be that change, start within yourself. Progress outwards, be influence into your family, into society, and continue to progress, and just be a good human being. All right, thank you very much. This is my persuasion speech against racism and how it can be conquered. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.